Hey bot builders, Gordy here from Botpress. Today we are going to start a chatbot project using the amazing new generative AI features in Botpress Cloud Studio. In our last video, we talked about the 3 different stages of this chatbot's use case, starting with capturing information, then using it to call data from an API, and then answering questions about that data. Today, we're going to get started building out the basic skeleton of the first part, capturing information. Let's get into the bot building. Once our new bot is ready, we'll go ahead and start off with a bit of cleaning, and then we can get into planning the bot. We'll start with a basic empty template. There's still a few bits of small talk that we don't need. And now, with a totally blank canvas, let's do a bit of planning. I like to make empty nodes to plan and make a bit of a flowchart, and do one empty node per task that the bot does. So the first task, of course, is to greet the user. And then after we give the greeting, we'll have another task where we ask the number of people. After that, we will ask for any kind of special diets, like are they vegan, are they vegetarian, stuff like that. Finally, the last question we ask is for some kind of recipe search query. And there we go, those are our 3 questions. I'll add one more node here at the end just to help out with our development. This will be called tell info, and it will just regurgitate the information we extracted to make sure we're extracting the right information. With our nodes all cleaned up now, let's start adding some actual content to the bot. Starting off with greeting the user, we'll use a text content and just give a basic greeting to the user. After we greet, we can get started with capturing information. We'll use a capture card here to ask the user for some basic information. And let's go through some of the options just briefly. Starting at the top is the different value to extract. We've got a bunch of built-in data types and values that you can extract, and one of these, quantity of people, right there. As soon as we click it, we get a nice basic prompt. We'll add some detail. Are we feeding today? And then the output, we can store it in a variable. I'll call this one num people. It hasn't been made yet, but now it's made. There's a few other options about history, about validation and retries and cancellation and all this. We'll get to this in a later video when we talk about building fallbacks and alternative routes for conversation design. For now, though, this is plenty and all we need to extract the number of people. Before we move on, I would like to quickly test this capture card. So in our tell info node, we'll add a new message, and this one we will repeat the variable. So we can call it using an @ notation. Say number of people is at num people. Pretty easy. And now we can give it a test in the emulator. Hi, how many people? Just 2 people today. And there we have it. Let's keep it going with the next capture card about diet. Now this one will take a little bit of custom work because there's not a built-in data type for diet. So we will have to make our own. We'll use a single choice and ask the user to please choose a type for each, and we'll store it in a new variable called diet type. And this single choice just means that the user is picking one option of many. It doesn't mean they only have one option to choose. In fact, we're going to give them 4 options here. 2, 3, 4. We'll give them the option to be vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, or no restrictions. And these choices will appear as buttons when we test in the emulator. Speaking of, let's go back to our tell info node. We'll add the diet is at diet type. And now let's give it a test. New conversation. Hello. 3 people, please. We are pescatarian. There we go. 3 people for pescatarian diet. Moving on to the last bit of content to capture is the recipe search query. Now this one is going to be a little bit different because recipe search query can be so many different things. And in a traditional bot, we would need to ask, like, what kind of recipe should we search for? And we would need to train this bot on hundreds of examples of recipe search queries so that it knows how to extract a recipe search. But ChatGPT is behind the scenes here at Botpress Cloud Studio, and ChatGPT already knows what a recipe search query would look like. So instead, we're going to use ChatGPT and not extract history and not fail, and we're going to put in an AI task card down here. And here's what I'm telling the AI. First, classify the sentence as a recipe search query or out of scope, and then clean it up a bit and reduce it down into keywords. As the input, we will give the user's sentence. So that's in event.payload.text. And we can even give a little example down here at the bottom. All right, now that we've defined our output and even given the AI an example, we can go back to our debugging node and include our recipe query. Let's give it a test, starting with a brand new conversation. Hello. 14 people. I have no restrictions. I want to know how to make this. And there we go, searching for beef stew. So there we have it, a nice basic skeleton of the bot to capture some information and then tell it right back to the user. In our next video, we'll be making use of the execute code card to call an external API and use this data to find real-world recipes and then give them back to the user. It's going to be some exciting bot building coming up, and I'll see you in the next one.